Hey everybody, it's Matt here. Also go by Doodlifts on the interwebs, and I'm joined here by Jenny, otherwise known as Jenny from the blockchain, and Christian, both from Evaluate. And we're gonna have a little talk today, learn a little bit more about y'all two, Evaluate, the history of all that, and have a good convo. So thanks guys for being here.
Yay! Yeah, we're excited. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
This place is really cool too, like the Flow House.
The Flow Hacker House. Yeah.
Giant Airbnb.
Yeah, the last time we had this podcast set up, we were in Denver. Christian, you were there at that point?
Yeah, I feel like this one feels like an upgrade. So it seems like the Flow Hacker Houses get better.
Hey, we're just leveling up. We're all leveling up here. That's kind of what we're talking about actually today. So this is really cool. So for those of you who don't know, Evaluate currently is an NFT trading swapping platform, but they've been around since 2021, and they got their start doing NBA Top Shot portfolios. So I'm just going to kind of give a little bit of fast forward. We'll work our way back. Most recently, Evaluate did a Disney Pinnacle trading event. That was a big deal. We'll get into the context of why that was a big deal. So let's start from back then to now. We'll work our way forward. But before we get into that, I want to get to know both of you a little bit better. So let's start with Jenny. Jenny, who is Jenny from the blockchain? How'd you get into Web3? Give us the old shtick.
Okay, the spiel. Okay, so actually, funny enough, I was like a full-time TikToker before Web3, and so then I decided I didn't want to be a TikToker anymore. So then I was like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? And somehow, some way, stumbled upon NFTs, and that was like October 2020. Top Shot, and got into that. And then since I was still really into content creating, I started making videos, YouTube videos, Jennifer Top Shot. The channel is still up. And then, Evaluate had actually started like maybe a month prior, and they saw me and they reached out and they're like, hey, do you want to like run our socials? And that's how we've been working together for like 3 years now.
It seems like a good fit. Former TikToker, Top Shot. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, so.
It is interesting how the more people you talk to, the more you hear Top Shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, how'd you get here? Well, let's see, Top Shot. It's this interesting deal. It's kind of a connective tissue, a lot of people in the space. Really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And same for me. So my co-founder, Alex, Cody, and I, we've known each other for 10 years. We met playing Xbox Live. We all lived in like around here in the Texas area. Alex and I were doing daily fantasy sports, so we were writing code to automate lineups for that, but we're making a lot of money. So Alex stumbled on NBA Top Shot. We started building tooling for ourselves, hoping to make money, just investing in different NFTs, and eventually sort of released it publicly, and a lot of people were using it and started a company around that.
Okay, so you said that you started a business around Top Shot. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so we released a portfolio tool for Top Shot very quickly. I think within a few months, a couple 100,000 people were using it. We had inbound interest from VC firms to invest in us, so we just quit our jobs and then raised money and then just continued to release updates, adding other Flow NFTs, eventually adding ETH NFTs. So that was basically the first 2 years or so was just focused on more Flow than anything, just sort of portfolio tooling for NFTs, which was a lot more popular when NFTs were skyrocketing and people wanted.
You got to track that number go up technology,
Right, exactly.
Okay, so how old were you when you said you quit your jobs?
Oh man, I don't want to think about this.
It's only 3 years ago.
Yeah. So I was 29 when we left our jobs. Alex and Cody, I think we were around 30.
I mean, okay, so but I'm putting myself in the time. So this is 3 years ago. Right. NFTs still relatively new at this point. You get a bunch of interest from like VCs and you're like, we're quitting our jobs. Like, what was that thought process like?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think we would have been able to start the company if COVID had not happened right before. So during sort of the, the beginning stages of Evaluate, we were all working from home because COVID lockdowns were still ongoing, which really allowed us to, work on two things at once. I think if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think, for us, it was definitely a risk. Like we, particularly Alex and Cody, were just these incredible software engineers who had awesome jobs before then. Not that my job was bad, but I think for them, it was a big risk, taking pay cuts and investing in ourselves and betting that we could build a platform for a lot of people. But it worked out in a way where we were able to leave our jobs and kind of immediately form a company, start from there.
Okay. So Top Shot was this kind of connective tissue, but maybe, like what was y'all's first NFT? What got you in the space? Was it Top Shot?
Yeah. Like, wasn't that yours too?
Yeah, I think so. So I started with NBA Top Shot.
Okay.
I collected most of the earlier Ethereum NFTs as well, and then tried to keep up with all of the.
Oh yeah, you like minted a Bored Ape.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
And
about.
he
That's
held it for
like I'm
like
into the early
he's
ETH
like
NFTs.
just
I'm
some
like,
other early stuff, nothing important.
Yeah.
Like,
just the
yeah.
apes.
Yeah. I used to try to because at that time we were just really looking towards like what else could we build portfolio tooling around. So a lot of it I didn't think was like particularly desirable, but would mint it anyways just to try to understand what's going on. And
Sure.
sometimes it worked out, more times it didn't. But yeah, we still do that. I think like most of the flow NFTs I try to mint and get involved in Discord and whatnot just to get a feel for things. But yeah, crazy time in 2021. What about you? I know that you're big in the Doodles community. What was your first NFT?
I was actually just telling someone this story earlier. They asked me, like, what was your first NFT? And I was like, well, it's really funny. My first NFT was called a gambling ape. Shout out gambling apes.
Oh my gosh. Was it a rug?
Yes. I'll give that short answer. Yes.
Yes.
How and why, the speed of the rug, that's all, up for debate. But it was actually, it's really funny because I definitely was one of the more like crypto curious people amongst like my friends. I tracked Bitcoin mining for a long time. I never got in because it was always so expensive, but I always thought it was super fascinating. So this buddy of mine hits me up and he goes like, hey, I'm minting this like ETH NFT. And I'm like, how is this guy like more deeper in crypto than I am? So he says it's a gambling ape and you get part ownership in a cryptocurrency casino. And I was like, hey, that sounds like a winning strategy to me, right? And so I bought in and joined the Discord, got kind of onboarded into Web3 in that way. And then it became pretty clear that these guys are a little bit nefarious. Shouldn't have been surprised, but I was naive. I imagine it's similar. I wasn't around I wasn't like heavily involved during the ICO time, but it was like the world is our oyster. So like everything was possible. Does that make sense? I was like, yeah, of course. I didn't think about the regulatory like problems here. But then it was funny. There was this guy who was in charge of marketing for this project, Gambling Apes, and he had this silly little like cartoon baby looking PFP, and everyone treated him like he walked on water. And I was like, what is this? Like, what's the deal with this, right? And I followed him around a couple projects, and everywhere he went, everyone treated him like he walked on water. And I was like, what's the difference? Is it because he's on marketing? Well, why do people treat him this way, right? And and then I find out that his PFP is a doodle, and I'm like, okay, what is this? I look.
Wait, who was it?
Mitchell.
Who? Wait,
Mitchell, he's gone on to work with Baobab Studios and some other people like that. He's done marketing for a few projects. But he's this little puffer bowl cut doodle. I mean, it's the silliest looking. It's like irreverent in its own weird way because it's just so silly. But so I find out what that is, and find out what a doodle is. I find out who Poopy and Evan are, and so I'm watching the podcast, learning more about these guys. I learned about CryptoKitties and the kind of history there, and it becomes pretty clear, like the juxtaposition between these guys and like the Gambling Apes team. I'm like, okay, these guys are serious. Like they're around, they've been here for a while. It seems like they're going to be here for a while in the future. And I'm kind of an all or nothing kind of guy. So I'm like, if I'm going to go in, I'm going to go in, and get a doodle. I had I'm giving the long version, but I had ambitions to build like a fitness brand around Doodlifts. So, makes sense.
Let's go.
And so it didn't end up doing that, but it's funny the way that doodles are. Doodles are very creative. They try to embrace that spirit. And so, I mean, ironically, we're podcasting right now. Like I've always wanted to do videography and be more creative in that way. And so being a part of the Doodles community has kind of unlocked the ability for me to do that kind of stuff. So that's the long version. So, yeah.
Love that.
Did you have a similar experience with the Doodles or what's your...
I mean, for me, I remember I really wanted to doodle, but then it was like you had to really grind to get in the Discord, and I just like wasn't willing. Yeah. So then I was like, oh, I'll just buy on the secondary. But then they were so popular, like they were popular at the gate.
Sure.
So then I was like waiting for them to go under 1 ETH, and I like tweeted it out. I was like, I'm gonna buy a doodle when it dips below 1 ETH. But it actually
you
it
manifested
never did.
the opposite by doing that.
No, so I tweeted that, and then Poopy Cat, like one of the co-founders, he responded and he was like, message me like, I'll help you find your forever doodle. And then we like hopped on a Zoom call, and he was like showing me his whole collection, and he's like, yeah, pick whichever one you want. I was like, I just want a purple hair one. And then so he picked the one that I have now that I kind of use as like my face for stuff. But And then we traded NFTs because I was like, I don't even have one ETH. Like, he's like, oh, we can just trade NFTs. So I traded him some that did not turn out well for him, but
Nice.
you know,
You
it's
came
fine.
up on that one. All right.
Yeah. So
That's some cool lore. That's awesome.
yeah.
Wow. I love that. That's like a great backstory. That's so cool. I love the histories of like PFPs and things like that. Okay, so coming back, so Christian, you're like, we have this NBA Top Shot portfolio tracking app. We've got VC interests. We've quit our jobs. We're all in on Web3. What happens next?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Yeah, I guess so. You know, for the most part, all of 2021 was just explosive. So
Sure.
I think, you know, especially with Top Shop in particular, I think those first like half a year or so, it was just kind of a race between us and a few other portfolio sites to just get as many users as possible. We ended up in the beginning, so we raised I think 1.6 million initially from DraftKings, Castle Island, Notation, so some crypto firms, some general firms. Began expanding the team, so we brought Jennifer on. I think she was our first employee.
Number one.
Number one. Represent.
Yeah, and so, you know, hired engineers, and I think all three of us were first-time founders, so we just sort of made mistakes and made some good decisions along the way. And I think, you know, Evaluate today is very different than when it started. But yeah, I think, you know, we added like Ethereum and other things. We realized that we just had such a better use case on Flow, so we quickly kind of pared down to that. Flow had made a lot of progress. So NFL Day came out, UFC Strike came out. Obviously, the Doodles 2 stuff happened. So it was interesting for us just to build third-party tooling, and then, you know, things would happen that are outside of our control, like new IPs become on Flow, and we instantly applied to them. And then most recently, around 2022, we added NFT swapping. So we went in that direction on our site. We've done 25,000 trades. We've moved, I think, somewhere between 100 and 200,000 NFTs. And then after that, I realized that we wanted to build software that other sites could use to bring that sort of chatting and swapping experience to first-party platforms. So we've done that, and we're starting with Disney Pinnacle and have a few other partners in the works. And yeah, really pursuing that direction.
Nice. No, that's really cool. It's just interesting to hear the kind of progression of like, well, let me actually ask this. Like, at what point did you decide we want to do swaps? Like, was there a moment that clicked for you?
Yeah, I think, so Alex and Cody and I all knew each other from gaming. So we had sort of growing up played RPGs and other things where item swapping was a big part of it. And I think for NBA Top Shot in particular, like them being digital trading cards, we felt like it would make sense to replicate that experience that you'd have as a kid where you'd swap cards for other cards. So we knew early on that we wanted to build it. I think where we've changed and where we've kind of, I'd like to say grown as a company, but just sort of focused on what we do best, is we really wanted to make consumer experiences. So in the beginning, we were doing portfolio tooling and trying to make it sort of as advanced as possible and offer maybe more like advanced trading features for a different type of consumer. More recently, we care more about mainstream audiences, particularly on Flow, where these IPs that I think people are less looking to find a casino, more so they're looking to engage with brands that they care about. So for us, swapping represented like a great opportunity for people to be able to be social and chat with each other, and then be able to sort of swap NFTs for other NFTs and not feel like they're having to pretend to be a stock trader with digital assets, if that makes sense.
Pretend to be a stock trader. I love that. No, that's something I want to get back to. So I'm just gonna kind of say this from my own head, is the ability to interact and engage with brands that you care about versus speculation. I don't think necessarily one is better than the other, but there's room for all kinds. And so I want to double down on that in a minute. But Jenny, I want to come back to you because we talked about, Christian, why'd you quit your job? You were a TikToker, as you said, and now you get an opportunity to become a Web3 marketer. Like,
yeah, I was so excited.
What was that process like? You know, what did you learn along the way? Like, how's that changed over time? You know, what's all the good stuff?
I have learned a lot. I really like working like the startup vibe though. Like sure. I was all about that. And I kind of like, I have some history in marketing before. Like I ran social media for entrepreneur events, and then I also had like a glitter company and I would like market that on Instagram. So I've always kind of done like non-traditional jobs, I guess,
Sure.
that are like, I don't know, just things that are fun. So yeah, if something sounds fun to me, then I want to do it. But yeah, I think I learned the power of community, like, and how important that is, especially in Web3, because everybody, they want to feel a sense of community. And I think that's why I like that we've built out like chatting, and, people can integrate chatting into their site. It's like, you can just connect with friends, even if you don't want to swap, like you can just hang out and like talk to people. And that's so fun for me.
No, that's huge. And I think it probably, I imagine, ties into some of your product decisions. Like you said, chat, like, let's use Disney Pinnacle as an example, as a comp, right? Like there's right now, or previous to now, I guess it's no longer exclusively true, there was only physical pin trading, right? And like, I'm sure there was probably like forums or other things where people could engage and interact, but I imagine the community was disparate, or people interacted in parks. Like, Web3 offers an opportunity for a community to congregate and interact in different ways. Like, so I just think that's super cool that you guys are building there and at the cutting edge of that. So.
Yeah, it's really exciting too, because it's like there's not really any other companies doing this. I feel like we're really like doing something that's exciting and new. And swapping too, like, yeah, like you guys were talking about like trading and how that's such a popular thing in the NFT space, but and people will like gift, they used to like gift in order to kind of trade, but trading, not like buying and selling, but actually like trading and swapping your NFTs, I think is more for the people that are like, they're more like long-term wanting to hold on to their stuff, and they're a little bit more like sentimental with their items, and they're not like just trying to make money. Like they're like actually collectors.
Well, and it is a little trippy too. Like imagine you're in a Discord for your ETH NFTs or whatever. Like, yeah, I'm being extreme here, but trading between members of a community, I feel like is a little more rare, because it's a little more competitive. There's always, what is their margin? Am I my friend's exit liquidity? You know what I mean? But like, for example, with the Disney Pinnacle trading event the other night, it was like everyone was doing it together, if that makes sense. It was like fun. Like Diamond put out a trade to me, and I was like talking smack on live stream, but it was just like, it was fun amongst community members, as opposed to like competitive, trying to get one over on each other, or collectively trying to get people outside the community to be exit liquidity. Like it seemed like a return to something a little healthier for a community within itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think one thing we noticed too in Web3 in particular, compared to like marketplaces you see in games, buying and selling is typically anonymous. Like occasionally you can see usernames, but you don't know who you're interacting with. You're pushing a button on a site to buy and sell an offer. And that's a lot of fun when you're making money. But when you're not making money, people sort of leave and are transit into the next platform where they can make money. So for us, we want to make the platforms that we're working with more valuable, like sort of give them network effects around. If you have an active community of 500 members, all of a sudden when they go on your platform, they can interact with each of them. So there's all those different connections you can make, versus when you run just a marketplace and you have things like wallet addresses as the only identifiers. People feel like they're just interacting one way with your platform. So I think, in some ways, I think there's a room for both these advanced marketplaces. And I think it's great that people can invest money in projects they care about and make a return when they're right, and that they can take those funds to new projects if they feel like it. But at the same time, I think a lot of people in these communities will buy an asset and then feel like, what next, especially when the prices aren't going up. So allowing them to chat with other people, allowing them to swap items, I think a lot of times strengthens those communities and gives them something to do. And we've seen it on our site where, I think around 2/3 of people who trade on our site trade again. Close to a quarter of them go on to trade more than 10 times. It's really an engaging experience, and it helps people sort of solidify those communities, and it gives stories to these assets of like, oh yeah, this Disney pin I traded with Diamond. And I think it adds a little bit more than sort of just treating it like financial markets or a casino.
Yeah. And what's funny too is like right now we're seeing trading on your platform with, more inexpensive digital collectibles, right? But I know in the real world, even some like super high-end collections, right? Like they're not being sold for cash. Like a lot of the super high-end collectors are trading. right? So like there could be a market for that too. People who have been pining over some collectible in someone else's collection, like, well, I'll only trade for it. I don't. There's just a different way to view those collectibles. But there was something you said in a workshop that you did here at the Hacker House the other day, and I thought it was really fascinating. You were comparing Pokemon, and you mentioned how the game, and this is something that I'd never considered before because I played red, I played blue, I played green, but I hadn't considered that trading of Pokemon was always at the heart of the game, which just kind of made me like look back and reframe my experience a little bit differently. And so I thought your insight into digital collectibles or NFTs around that was fascinating. Could you explain that?
Yeah.
Thinking a little bit?
Yeah, and then even though I had played those games, I didn't know the full history of it. But Satoshi Tajiri, who started Pokemon, was an avid bug collector, and they were
Bug like
like little bugs.
Oh, yeah.
So he had a passion for collecting them. They were developing a game, and he noticed the Game Boy Trade Link cable, or I think it was just the Game Link cable. And at the time, the Game Link cable was used for people to compete with Game Boy. So if you were playing Tetris, you could connect your Game Boy to another Game Boy and compete against them. And he thought about like the bugs he was collecting, like what if you could have these little digital creatures that these kids who are playing these Game Boys could swap amongst each other. And they really made it core to like what the Pokemon brand was. So in like one of the earliest advertisements is Drake Bell before he's famous playing a Game Boy with a link cable that goes like a telephone wire across the window, and the Pokemon sort of just crawling across as they trade them. So they leaned in it heavily with advertising. They would sell multiple copies of the same game. So red and blue in the US and red and green in Japan were identical games, but the difference was, for the most part, that there was Pokemon in red that you couldn't get in blue. And it was mainly done so that they would encourage kids who had one copy, because your parents aren't going to buy you, whatever it costs twice, to trade with people who had the other copy. And for them, for the richer kids, they would buy both, so they'd make more money in these instances. So they used it as a commercial strategy, like how do we incentivize people to trade and get them to buy more games as a result of it. And then lastly, some of the game mechanics, like there are certain Pokemon that would only evolve when you trade them. So in order to sort of like, obviously there was the mainline game and then sort of the objectives of it, but there was also sort of mechanics in terms of like finishing the Pokedex. You had to swap with other people. So I think to me, it's always stood out, like why are these sort of digital assets in Web3, like why aren't we taking this proven strategy that has propelled a $92 billion grossing media franchise, the biggest media franchise in the world? Why do we not look at swapping as sort of core to gameplay or core to these experiences? And we want to be a big part of helping brands replicate that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, I can imagine a Web3 game forking itself, having two versions and incentivizing trading. I mean, I feel like that's a win for players. It's a win, especially if, I don't know, royalties could be enforced on chain amongst trading, or if there's a fee involved or something like that. Like, I feel like Web3 game developers would probably be salivating at that concept.
Yeah,
to be fair.
I think we see even with Pinnacle, with the idea of people minting duplicates and helping each other complete sets, that sense of cooperation that like we're helping each other out.
Sure.
I think it really strengthens the community. It makes it more fun. And yeah, I think there's other things, like we'd love to see people create NFTs that would evolve or change based off trading them. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to sort of run that playbook back that for whatever reason really hasn't been done before.
Mm. Outside of running the playbook back, where's the future? What is it like, your if only vision? Something crazy.
Yeah, I think we'd love to build the standard in which people communicate and swap items across both inter-collections. So, like Disney Pinnacle, for instance, we envision people trading pins. But we'd also like to define what that Web3 collecting experience looks like in terms of, can we make it more social? Can we make it feel like it isn't so much just like a financial investment, but more something you participate, something that you can kind of get involved with the community. And I think sort of replicating what we've done with Disney Pinnacle and other brands is what we're really aiming to do. And so, yeah, I think that's the goal for us, to just make it easy for brands to implement that style of community building without having to build it from scratch.
That's cool. Wow, it just got me thinking a lot. I'm like, I have a tokenized piece of land, and I'm like, what if I could swap my land? Like that's like just a whole other.
With all like everything you built on it. That would be cool.
Oh, yeah, like the items themselves. Oh, that gets real weird. Like that's it. That's fascinating. Um, so and I think currently you guys are using, or you came up with an SDK for brands to be able to work with the Evaluate swapping platform, right? Um, how are you thinking about kind of community building? Are you helping some of those brands like understand community building along with your tool, or what's been your experience in how they view their communities? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's different for every platform. One thing that's been um, I guess eye-opening for me is just how different some of these teams are. Like some of these NFT platforms and companies are run by companies with like 50 to 100 people that have raised, tens of millions of dollars or more. Some of them are people who are just hobbyists who just care about, whether it's art or a brand that created. And so we've had to be very flexible in terms of like, how do we make money? How do we first add value to all these different kinds of platforms that are very different? And to like, how do we monetize that? And how do we work with in a way that makes sense for everybody? Yeah, it just varies, and I'm sure you've seen this just collecting NFTs. A lot of these communities are very different. And I think for us, it's very easy to sell into the idea of like, hey, it seems like there's this idea that like the more people are focused on the financials, like the worse it is for the community and the more divisive it is. And we have this alternative that works really well and is super engaging and can bring people back to your platform versus them living in Twitter or Discord constantly, and give you a little bit more control over how people interact, and hopefully make it easier for your people to kind of engage. Because I've noticed that a ton with collecting NFTs, like it often doesn't feel worth buying into it late because you feel like people have already made friends, they've already connected with each other, and you're just this random in Discord. But I think swapping and the way we do it, where you can connect with random people and message and swap with them, is a great way of like getting involved in the community and bringing something to the table instead of just like the buying, selling aspect to it. So yeah, it's so different per community and per brand. And we're really trying to make it to where it's something that would appeal to something like Disney Pinnacle, but also something that would apply to some of these smaller collections or ones that have been around for a while.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I can just say from my personal experience, most recently with the Disney Pinnacle trading event, Jenny and I were on stream, and like I felt like I was like making friends in the chat, like, and that's like,
I know, so fun.
Like I met superstar Steve and these people, and I'm like, I remember them,
and they were like hooking us up too.
Yeah, yeah, they were hooking it up, but I remember them, and it's like I can't think of a recent experience where I've like traded NFTs or swapped NFTs with somebody, and like had a fond, positive like memory of that experience and those people. And so it's like, yeah, it just unlocks something. And I'll add this too. Like normally when I think about a minting event, right, I'm looking forward to minting something or acquiring some kind of NFT digital collectible. There's a whole preparation to it. I have to make sure I have gas on the right chain in the right wallet, and it's a whole thing. And for the Pinnacle trading event, I just showed up with my phone, and it's like, and it felt like, because it got rid of all that preparation or that just like that headspace that gets taken up by that, then it allowed for fun. Then it was fun. Then I was trading. And then it was like, I felt like that childish wonder kind of come alive, where I was like, I just started like making things up. I was like, cause in Disney Pinnacle, there's multiple trading rarities. And Jenny and I were like making new math up. Like, all right, 1 common plus 1 silver equals 1 gold. That's a good trade. That's a good trade. And it was just fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know if that was always the intention, but I just wanted to kind of give you your flowers that you unlock something at least within this hardened degenerate. No, I'm just kidding. But it was just fascinating. Like, have you heard that experience from other people who have used swaps on different platforms as well?
Yeah, people love like, so we also support like on our site, Evaluate.xyz, like you can swap, a bunch of flow NFTs. And I remember Jim's, like, I don't know if you know Jim's, he's like one of the top traders, like always just swapping on our site. And it's like, you can really like build up a name for yourself just by like swapping and become like popular.
My wife was looking for a wearable. I was like, I gotta hit up Jim's.
Yeah, and everyone knows like he's the person to go to like for the swaps. So yeah, we've had a lot of like really good feedback on people like loving that they can swap and they can chat and they can, develop relationships with other collectors, which, you know, it's not necessarily always easy to do that. Like, yeah, you can go and like DM somebody on Twitter, but that kind of feels a little more like pressure and like, oh, what if they leave me on red, and oh, I can't even message them because they're verified, and you know. But like for swapping, it's like you just need someone's username, you add them, and you can start chatting with them right away.
I've sent so many of those messages out. Hey, random person, is this your doodle? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
just no response.
Yeah, you always feel like you're about to get scammed when you get those messages.
I know, but I'm like, I want to know, is this your actual doodle?
Yeah, and you can actually like look through the people's collections. It's like it's kind of like a fun way of stalking somebody.
Yeah.
You're like, what NFTs do they have?
We could always wallet watch, but it makes it a little bit different. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like the ability to do it in real time. It was fun.
Yeah.
And I think I see the same thing where like that fun element can be rare, in like outside of like the context of what we built in terms of like when you're going on these marketplaces. It's a lot of times it's only fun if you're making money. It can be stressful otherwise. But yeah, I mean, growing up, I have 5 siblings, and so we used to go to the Disney parks, and we loved like buying these pins with our parents' money and swapping them, both with like other people at the parks and like some of the workers and whatnot. So for me, it was like such an awesome opportunity as an adult to go back and try to build a digital version of that with their team. So we're super thankful to be able to work with Dapper and the Disney Pinnacle team to build that experience. But yeah, I think for us, that's a sort of North Star for us. Is, are people enjoying this? Like, is it a fun alternative? And is it something you can do if you only have a few dollars, in terms of like, you know, with these assets being able to buy one, and then from there, your imagination can take you of like, oh, can I swap this, you know, penny up to a Lamborghini in terms of
Oh yeah.
trading your way up. And yeah, I totally echo like what you said around like gyms and sort of like the leaderboard concept of like, it's a great way to show credibility and also just connect with people. And even when you lose a slight amount of value on trades, it can feel good to help people out and to collaborate and help people complete sets. So yeah, we're super optimistic about it. And particularly with the Disney Pinnacle event, I think people really loved the experience of it. And we love being able to do it on the first party platform, so you don't have to worry about, you know, getting fakes and counterfeit assets. So yeah, overall a great experience.
You said something really interesting about even sometimes you may lose value, but to help somebody out, help them complete a set, you're fine. And I was telling Jenny that I'm sure that I lost value in that trading event. I know I probably got fleeced, but I had fun. And like I look back upon that experience fondly. And I've told multiple projects, and there's who, you know, have asked for, you know, my take on something or feedback. And there's only so much surface area you can about creating monetary value of an NFT, if that makes sense. Like, you know, number go up, like, but there's so much other surface area that goes underutilized. And I've told projects time and time again, I'm like, reveal animation. I'm like, do the reveal animation so well, and I won't care. Like, I'm just, an example is parallel trading cards. I bought a pack of their cards for way too much money, but the reveal experience was so good. I mean, it was just like this like AAA tier animation storytelling experience. It was long, you know, it was a few minutes long. I didn't pull any rares. I didn't care. I felt like I got my money's worth just from the reveal experience. Like, and I think there's something to be said for that. Similar to this trading event, right? I probably lost value, lost money on it, but the overall experience left me feeling better after the event. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
I left better than I showed up. Like, I think that is a like underutilized piece of utility for projects. Maybe that's emotional utility, whatever. But
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Jenny?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's like our degen way of socializing, you know? It's like, okay, yes, you can leave your house, you can go places, meet people, but if you're just chronically online, like a lot of us, then it's like, this is a great way to connect with people. And I think, I don't know, like people will pay a lot of money just to like talk to other people, go to parties, stuff like that. So I feel like this is like a version of that. And I think, yeah, people are more willing to like be generous in swapping and trading and not having it be like so fair. Like, oh my God, it has to be $10 worth for $10 worth, because there's also like, you know, that part of like, oh yeah, I'm hooking this person up. And like, you know, you just feel nice. It's just like a nice thing to do. And
niceness returns to Web3.
Yeah. It's good karma. Okay.
Totally. Okay, so you guys, you know, you've you've had your first Disney Pinnacle trading event. You said you've got some other partners in the pipeline. I won't ask you to reveal who they are. But, what's next for Evaluate in the way of, are you trying to work with as many partners, get integrated into first-party platforms, or is there other things you're investigating? Where's your head at now?
Yeah, I think a big focus is sort of just replicating what we've done on Disney Pinnacle elsewhere. We'd love to, we've built a lot of software around the idea of trading in games. So we're really looking for partners in Web3 who are building games that are particularly like RPG style, but any type of game where two players can approach each other and trade. I think we put a lot of thought and design work into facilitating that. So I think that'll probably be something you see more frequently over the remainder of the year, is a push to build software for Web3 games, and then obviously just taking feedback that we've gotten from the trading event, and hopefully future trading events or mainstream or like mainstay features, just refining it, making it better, making it easier for people to connect and trade is big for us. And I think another thing that I wanted to touch on that I didn't hit is I think it's a fun experience being able to be in the context of a conversation with another person, and both being able to see your collection and the other person's, because how often are people really on your profile page looking at the NFTs? It gives you an opportunity to show off a little bit in terms of what you're collecting.
Reminds me of looking through somene's Pokemon binder, you know what I mean?
Right.
When you're trading, seeing what they got.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. Now, I remember one of the things from the experience was, obviously I was in the trading experiences, I was in Discord finding people to add. Have you thought about discovery in that way? Is that even on your radar? How do we connect on these platforms with users? Does that make sense?
Yeah, we give a lot of leeway to brands to implement it how they choose. So for Disney Pinnacle, for instance, they wanted to do an event and they wanted people to facilitate in their new Discord. So, we were happy to work with them on that. In terms of we've done different discovery methods. So the beginning Evaluate sort of worked like chat relay, where they would just pair you with people and you could send trade requests to individual ones, but we wanted to give people a way to sort of connect randomly and to be able to spend time and make new connections. And then there's a lot of other ways that you can implement it. So we allow developers to put trade buttons on individual item assets. So if you list an NFT, you could also put something on that page that says message this user or offer items for this user in return for that NFT. You can also put these buttons on profile pages. We think a big discovery method would be sort of like the RuneScape style, players and games approaching each other and trading. But it is a tough. It's tough to design for, because I think you want to build rewarding experiences, and I think everybody their stated preference is I just want to push a button and have the things that I want. But what people really connect with and have fun doing is the search, the process of meeting people and talking with them and making these deals. So for us, it's we don't want to make it too convenient where you're just saying, what do I want and what do I have? I think we want to make it to where it's possible and it's easy to find people that have the thing that you like, but it's also a fun process versus it just being a win button.
It reminds me of RuneScape or World of Warcraft. I felt like there was if I'm remembering correctly, there was markets that you could go to and everyone's chat bubbles are flying hey, I'm looking for this, look at that. And you had to kind of wander around this kind of forum almost. That'd just be something kind of fun, interesting avenue. That's cool though. Yeah. I mean, like you said, I'm sure that, brands, they all want to do it a little bit differently. So it's cool that you're able to help them, navigate that, which reminds me, and I think this applies to both of you. Also be curious, I know that you've done this first party integration with Disney, on Evaluate Swap, you can use, multiple other brands, but in your conversations with brands, are you able to educate these brands on Web3 more or less, these kind of legacy IPs versus working with Web3 native brands that are kind of coming up and looking to you guys? How are those conversations differing? Do you find that you have to translate, that you have to educate? What is that that experience like? I think you'll have a unique take is why I ask.
Yeah, I think we've started with brands that have marketplace experiences that don't have swapping, I think is where we focus the most.
Web3 native. So they already know about NFTs. They already we're not so this is what an NFT is, non-fungible token. Yeah. It's they already know what that is. It's just they get the added utility. No.
Okay.
And I think it's important for us to prove out the value of it and how engaging the experience is. And then we're hoping when we have more examples like Disney Pinnacle that we can approach new parties that are looking to build on Flow or anywhere, and help them build these experiences. And I think particularly for these family-friendly brands, I don't think that they want to build platforms where like the core function of it is making or losing a ton of money. I think
Sure.
they want to build things that give people a way to collect their assets and participate. And so I think for us, it's an opportunity, but it's important. There's a lot of great platforms on Flow already that we need to, or that we want to work with before sort of selling directly to somebody on NFTs and swapping at the same time.
Totally. Yeah, so you said you felt like a lot of the brands you're working with already are kind of more Web3 native. They understand.
Yeah, but that'd be cool. Like for like Fortnite, people could trade their skins and stuff. Like that would definitely be cool.
Yeah, Fortnite, if you're watching, hit us up.
Fortnite, Roblox, what's up? No, that's really cool. I guess, yeah, this is an interesting unlock for me because like I think that swapping is not really in the mind of a lot of people in Web3 quite yet. We think about the kind of liquidity spectrum, and it's like buying, selling, lending, but I think not a lot of people are thinking about swapping. And I want to call this out too, because I think Will Reinwab, probably mispronounced that, from Cryptoys, he was on a podcast a while ago and he was talking about how, let's say you get these digital collectible toys for your kids and they age out like a kid does. Kids age out of toys. Maybe you don't sell this toy for a profit, but maybe you sell it to the next generation of kid for half price. So it changes the kind of buying matrix when you're looking to buy a toy or a digital collectible or something like that, where you know that this isn't entirely sunk cost. Does that make sense? And so I don't know. I just think that's fascinating. I think swaps plays into that same model. Maybe you can trade it to the next generation of kids, and so you can pass it on. Does that make sense? Like it expands the liquidity spectrum.
Yeah,
in an interesting way.
I mean, I've gone to like sort of these like collector stores, and sometimes you look at stuff you owned as a kid that's all like for 10 or 20x the price as collectibles now, which makes you feel old. But yeah, like I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of just making it to where and I think NFTs and Web3 really enable this in terms of like allowing you to invest in your interests and then also allowing those to change and to be able to get some type of return on it and move elsewhere. So I totally agree with that. And I'm picturing like in Toy Story when like Andy ages out of his toys and they
I don't want to play with you anymore.
Yeah, and it's like such a process to sell your physical stuff too. It's like, oh my God, I got to take all these pictures. I got to write a description. I got to figure out what marketplace, like where am I going to sell it? And with NFTs, it's so much easier to like just sell your stuff.
I was showing Pinnacle to a friend the other day, and I think I also showed them a tokenized trading card that I had. And someone's like, what's the point? I'm like, you clearly have never been to a swap store. Like, you know what I mean? And like where you're just at the mercy of the guy behind the counter who's going to offer you whatever price, like, or eBay. Like those are your options. And either of them are great, So I think it's really awesome.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I think it's even an improvement on physical swapping and trading because one, when you're doing it on these first party platforms, you're able to verify that everything's real, and people are familiar with whether it's Disney pins or other collectibles, there's extremely hard to detect fakes and there's a lot of counterfeit assets out there.
Yes.
So it's such a luxury with Web3 to be able to, one, verify that these assets are real on a platform that you're already using, and then two, to have like real-time market data on terms of like what do these things go for, which is difficult to do in the physical world, right? Where you have these sites that are trying to like aggregate these disparate sales on, whether it's eBay or other places. So I think that data availability and that access, and then the security that comes with like, particularly on Flow, where, I think we're an example of that. Like we've had 25,000 trades and we haven't had anybody get drained or scammed or anything, and we put a lot of time into like the safety and trust side. I think it's such a luxury to have that peace of mind to know that what you're trading for is real and to know the value of both sides of the trade.
Yeah. I mean, people laugh when I tell them that there's a counterfeit Disney pin market. I'm like, hey, if there's something of value, people are faking it. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's a huge improvement on that. And like you said, the availability of sales data, we're preaching the choir, probably a lot of people, but I think it's worth saying, if you've ever if you've combed your closet for your old Beanie Babies and your Pokemon cards, and you go to look, how much is this thing worth? The top result is eBay. It says Princess Diana Beanie Baby Bear, $50,000. And your eyes lit up and you go, oh my gosh. And you realize, oh, it's only because someone listed this thing for $50,000 on eBay. This isn't the actual value. I have no idea what these things are selling for. Like, can I even, is it worth anything? I have no idea. And then you put it back in the box for another 10 years. Like, so NFTs fix this essentially, like for physical and non-physical goods. So I just think it's worth saying, like, because it's easy to forget when we're in the space for a long time. Like, these are the problems that it's solving for, but it still is, and it continues to improve with platforms like yours.
Totally.
No, really cool. Really cool. I mean, I'm excited for y'all. It's funny because you guys have been around for a few years, which in this space feels super OG, but at the same time, it's like this Disney Pinnacle trading event illustrates how early we really still are. So I'm just excited to see what y'all's team at Evaluate continues to do, on Flow. I know that y'all are working on other chains now too, which is awesome. The future is multi-chain, you know what I mean? And I think it's awesome. I'm excited for y'all. So you guys excited for what's to come in the future?
Yeah, definitely. And likewise on just Flow's direction, I think the EVM on Flow, Cadence 1.0 upgrade is going to be a massive unlock in terms of developer outreach. So being able to sort of sell the vision of Flow to people who have traditionally developed on Ethereum. And then for us, I think we want to be an asset if you're somebody who's building platforms on Ethereum that want to bring advanced or just mainstream features like account linking, or just like the throughput of Flow in terms like the quick execution time. We want to be a resource building tooling out for that as well. So we've never been more excited about Flow's direction, and I think it's coming in a great time too in terms of like one with brands like Pinnacle's products kind of coming into play and growing, and then two, I think it's been a long time coming, and we're super excited for Flow's newest upgrade and want to be a big part in terms of evangelizing it.
There's something to be said for that. You mentioned, I think, time to finality or something along those lines. Like, yeah, I mean, no offense to digital gold out there, but I imagine swapping with a quick time to finality makes that process a little more seamless.
Yeah, I think like one, we're able to chart, or swapping on Evaluate is free for users, and that's only possible because of Flow's architecture. Two, it's very fast. Like, you don't have to wait, that long for these offers to go out for people to accept them. And there's multiple transactions that happen in terms of when you trade on Evaluate. Like, you create a proposal, the other person accepts it, and then it executes the swap. So the way Flow's built allows us to do that, where it's free for users, and it's fast. And so I think we've benefited a lot from the work that Flow's team has done on the architecture side, the work that Dapper's team done in terms of landing these massive brand partners, in terms of the reputation they've built around how safe and secure it is to use Dapper Wallet and to use Flow. And I think for us, it's we get to stand on shoulders of giants in terms of when we build this stuff, we can just build on top of this excellent architecture that already exists. So we appreciate it, and I think it's only going to be better when more people can use it with the latest upgrade.
Awesome. Jenny, you excited for what's to come next?
Yes. I'm like, how can I top what he just said? No, but yeah, I'm definitely excited for more like Web3 marketplaces and games to integrate the SDK so that people can chat and swap like on their site. Because it's, fun having people come to our site, but it would be cool if it's kind of like a one-stop shop for those people. So yeah, I'm excited for what's to come.
Amazing. Well, I got to say, it's been a pleasure sitting down with y'all and chatting. Like, we interact online, and things like that. But I mean, you can't be kidding to sit down and talk about this stuff too. I feel like I'm excited. I'm like, I want to go swap more stuff right now. It's awesome. So just want to thank y'all for spending this time and to chat with us. And I look forward to maybe getting to do it again sometime soon.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Right. Thank you for having us. This is a cool, like, IRL podcast setup you got going on. So
Awesome.
When's the next Flow Hacker House, or can you not share that?
Oh, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank y'all. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
Cool. Thanks.
Bye.